Batman wasn't just a superhero movie, it was a high-stakes industry gamble that forever transformed Hollywood and pop culture. Behind those gothic visuals and Jack Nicholson's iconic grin lurked production nightmares, death threats against the lead actor, executives interfering daily, and a revolutionary marketing campaign that changed how movies are sold forever. Today, we're diving into 20 weird facts about Batman that even hardcore fans don't know, from the actor who desperately tried to steal Michael Keaton's role to the literal avalanche of merchandise that buried toy stores, and the secret message Tim Burton hid in the Batcave that studio executives never caught. And stick around for our bonus fact, the disturbing real-world phenomenon that happened after the film's release that Warner Brothers executives were forced to address publicly. So grab your utility belt and let's unmask the truth behind one of cinema's most influential blockbusters. Michael Keaton was nearly fired after fan backlash erupted. When Michael Keaton's casting was announced, Warner Brothers received over 50,000 protest letters. Not hundreds, not thousands. 50,000 angry fans demanding Burton choose someone else. The studio executives panicked, meetings were called, jobs were threatened. Burton stood his ground, but it wasn't easy. Producer John Peters later revealed, "We almost pulled the plug. The fan reaction was brutal. The executives were terrified we were flushing $50 million down the drain with this comedic actor." What saved Keaton? A hastily produced 90-second teaser trailer that strategically showed barely any footage of Keaton without his mask. The trailer played before screenings of Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, and audience reaction cards completely reversed studio sentiment overnight. When audiences cheered the brief footage, the studio backed down. The lesson? Sometimes studios are one test screening away from disaster. Jack Nicholson's unprecedented deal made him the highest-paid actor in history. Jack Nicholson didn't just sign a contract, he negotiated what Hollywood insiders still refer to as the deal. Nicholson secured not just his $6 million salary, but an unheard-of percentage of the film's gross profits, merchandising revenue, and a cut of the sequel profits, despite not appearing in them. The studio wasn't just paying for his performance, they were paying for legitimacy. Remember, superhero films were considered box office poison in the 1980s. Nicholson's involvement transformed Batman from risky venture to prestige project overnight. By the time merchandise sales settled, Nicholson had pocketed an estimated $50 million, equivalent to over $110 million today. As Nicholson later quipped to the press, "I knew it was going to be a phenomenon. That's why I did the movie. I did it for money. But I did it for the right kind of money." The Batsuit was a physical torture chamber for Michael Keaton. The original Batsuit wasn't designed for human movement. It was designed for the camera. Weighing 55 pounds, constructed from thick rubber and foam latex, Keaton couldn't turn his head at all. To look sideways, he had to turn his entire body. Keaton lost 3-4 pounds of water weight daily just from sweating inside the suit. The cowl was so restrictive that Keaton developed claustrophobia during filming. Between takes, crew members would aim industrial fans directly at his face, the only exposed part of his body, to prevent him from passing out. This physical constraint actually shaped Keaton's entire performance. The now iconic bat turn, where Batman turns his whole body instead of just his head, wasn't a stylistic choice, it was physical necessity. Sometimes the most distinctive character traits come not from the script, but from working around real-world limitations. Robin was fully cast, costumed, and then cut entirely. Marlon Wayans wasn't just considered for Robin, he was cast, fitted for a costume, given a contract, paid, and then completely erased from the film. As pre-production ballooned, Tim Burton realized the script was becoming unwieldy. Dick Grayson's origin story competed with Bruce Wayne's narrative. Storyboards were already drawn, sets designed. But during a tense meeting with writers, Burton made the call, "We're cutting Robin. The movie isn't about Batman and Robin, it's about becoming Batman. Wayans didn't appear in the sequel either, despite having a pay-or-play contract. Years later, Warner Brothers still sent him royalty checks for merchandise featuring a version of Robin that moviegoers never saw. The studio was contractually paying for a ghost. As Wayans later told reporters, "I'm probably the only actor in history who got paid for a role that never existed on screen." Sean Young's desperate attempts to play Catwoman crossed disturbing lines. Originally cast as Vicky Vale, Sean Young broke her collarbone during horseback riding rehearsals 1 week before filming began. Kim Basinger replaced her, but that was just the beginning of a bizarre Hollywood saga. When Batman Returns entered production, Young became obsessed with playing Catwoman. She didn't just campaign for the role, she ambushed. After being rejected for a formal audition, Young arrived at Warner Brothers offices in a homemade Catwoman costume, demanding to see Tim Burton and producer John Peters. Security footage leaked to entertainment shows captured Young prowling the executive floor in full costume, frightening administrative staff. When Burton refused to meet with her, she escalated her campaign to television appearances and confrontations at industry events. The role ultimately went to Michelle Pfeiffer. Burton later admitted, "It was one of the most uncomfortable situations I've ever experienced. You want passion from actors, but there's a line between persistence and something else entirely." Tim Burton sabotaged his own sets to fight studio interference. Warner Brothers executives demanded daily set visits, constantly offering suggestions that contradicted Burton's vision. Burton's solution wasn't negotiation, it was sabotage. Production designer Anton Furst revealed years later that Burton deliberately scheduled the most complex, technically challenging Gotham City scenes on days when executives visited. The cacophony of construction, special effects tests, and lighting setups made coherent conversations impossible. Burton would innocently shrug, "We can talk, but I can't really pause this particular setup. Safety concerns."
Maybe it should be Bruce Wayne.
Even more deviously, Burton intentionally incorporated design elements he knew the studio would object to, serving as distractions he could compromise on while protecting the elements he truly cared about. The exaggerated Gothic architecture wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was a strategic buffer against studio meddling. As Furst noted, Tim gave them obvious targets while protecting the soul of his film. The executives congratulated themselves for fixing problems that were never actually problems. Nicholson's Joker makeup contained a dangerous chemical that's now banned. Jack Nicholson didn't wear ordinary makeup. His Joker required a specially formulated chemical compound to achieve the perfect white pallor that wouldn't crack during his extreme facial expressions. What the studio didn't publicize? This compound contained mercury-based ingredients now banned by the FDA. Makeup artist Nick Dudman later admitted, "We were using techniques that worked brilliantly but have since been recognized as potentially harmful with repeated exposure." Jack's skin would be irritated for days after shooting. The team needed 4 hours for initial application and nearly 2 hours for removal. The removal process was particularly brutal, requiring solvents that left Nicholson's skin raw. During the 6-month shoot, doctors were called to treat him 3 times for severe dermatological reactions. Nicholson later quipped, "The real reason the Joker was crazy? Try wearing that stuff on your face for 12 hours and see what it does to your mental health." The iconic Batmobile destroyed over 120 fiber optic cables during one stunt. The Batmobile wasn't just difficult to drive, it was actively destructive, weighing 1.5 tons with a Chevrolet Impala chassis hidden beneath the bat-shaped shell. The vehicle's turning radius was so wide that entire sets had to be redesigned to accommodate it. During the pivotal chase scene when the Batmobile makes a sharp turn through flames, disaster struck. The vehicle's undercarriage tore through fiber optic cables controlling the computerized camera systems. Not 1 or 2 cables, 123 cables bringing production to a halt for nearly 3 days. Special effects supervisor John Evans recounted, "We'd run the sequence 6 times successfully. On the 7th take, something different happened with the weight distribution. The bottom plates caught the cables and just shredded everything. It was like watching $200,000 being torn apart in seconds." The solution? The practical effects team welded steel guards to the undercarriage and completely redesigned the set's cable management system in 48 sleepless hours. Prince wrote twice as many songs as the studio requested, causing a music licensing nightmare. Warner Brothers initially approached Prince for 3 songs. They got 9. Prince didn't just write music. He created an entire competing soundtrack album without approval, presenting the studio with a finished product rather than samples. This created a contractual crisis. Danny Elfman had already completed his orchestral score, which now conflicted with Prince's songs both tonally and in planned scene placement. Studio executives, seeing dollar signs in Prince's involvement, demanded Burton incorporate more songs. Burton, who hadn't wanted pop music at all, later revealed, "Suddenly I'm making a Prince music video in the middle of my Batman movie. The compromise was painful." What audiences don't realize, the Joker's museum scene was completely reshot and extended solely to incorporate the song Party Man, adding $750,000 to the budget. The conflict created lasting tensions between Burton and the studio, with Burton insisting on complete musical control for Batman Returns as a condition for his return. The Batcave set had a hidden message criticizing Warner Brothers executives. The Batcave wasn't just a set. It was Tim Burton's secret message board. Frustrated with constant studio notes demanding the film be less dark, Burton instructed his set decorators to hide a special message in the cave's blueprints visible on Bruce Wayne's desk, written in tiny text that executives would never notice but was technically visible on camera. "No more notes from frightened executives. Let filmmakers make films." This wasn't the only hidden message. Throughout the Batcave, the design team incorporated tiny bat symbols that, when connected, spelled out "hands off," Burton's plea for creative freedom. Production designer Anton Furst later confirmed us, "We turned Tim's frustration into a game. How many ways could we tell the studio to back off without them noticing? Turns out, quite a few. It's all there on screen if you know where to look." Hey, go ahead and like and subscribe because we're about to reveal the production disaster that nearly got the entire film canceled just 3 weeks before premiere. Plus, you'll learn which other A-list actor secretly filmed scenes as Bruce Wayne before being fired. Michael Keaton improvised Batman's most iconic line against the director's wishes. "I'm Batman." Those 2 words defined the character for a generation. Yet they weren't in the original script. The line was supposed to be, "I'm the Knight." Keaton changed it during filming without telling Burton. When Burton called cut, he confronted Keaton. "That's not the line." Keaton simply replied, "It is now." The tension on set was palpable. Burton, known for precise control, initially demanded another take with the scripted line. What changed Burton's mind? The reaction of the crew. Script supervisor Julie Pitkanen recalled, "When Michael said, 'I'm Batman,' the entire crew got chills. Even the grips who'd been working 16-hour days perked up. Tim saw their reaction and quietly told the sound engineer to make sure that take was marked." The impromptu change created ripple effects through the entire production. Marketing immediately seized on the line for trailers, and subsequent script revisions embraced the direct, declarative tone that Keaton had instinctively understood the character needed. Jack Palance couldn't physically complete his scenes, forcing emergency rewrites. Jack Palance, cast as crime boss Carl Grissom, arrived on set with a problem no one anticipated. At 69, he physically couldn't perform as written. The script called for Grissom to fight back during his death scene, throwing punches, diving across his desk, breaking a window. After Palance struggled through rehearsals, a set medic advised Burton that forcing these actions risked serious injury. Rather than replace the actor, Burton and screenwriter Sam Hamm performed emergency rewrites overnight. The new scene, where Grissom calmly faces death at his desk, was actually more chilling than the action sequence originally planned. Palance brought gravitas to stillness. His simple line, "You are my number one guy," delivered while accepting his fate, became one of the film's most quoted moments. Second unit director Peter McDonald revealed, "What began as accommodation for an aging actor's limitations transformed into one of the film's most memorable scenes. Sometimes limitations breed creativity better than freedom does." A dangerous chemical leak on set sent 16 crew members to the hospital. The Axis Chemical Factory sequence nearly became a real-world disaster when a coolant pipe burst during filming, releasing Freon gas onto the enclosed soundstage. Within minutes, 16 crew members reported difficulty breathing. Production halted as ambulances arrived. While no one suffered permanent injuries, the incident exposed dangerous working conditions. The massive practical effects, real explosions, real fire, combined with poor ventilation, created a hazardous environment. OSHA investigators later cited Warner Brothers for safety violations. Stunt coordinator Max Cleven admitted, "We were pushing boundaries that wouldn't be legal today. The amount of live pyrotechnics we used indoors would never get approved now. There was a cowboy mentality, get the shot at all costs." The incident forced a production shutdown for 5 days and led to a complete redesign of the remaining chemical plant sequences. Several planned stunts were scrapped entirely, explaining why the film's climactic sequence feels somewhat abrupt compared to earlier action scenes. Billy D. Williams took the role of Harvey Dent, specifically to become Two-Face in the sequel, then was replaced. Billy D. Williams didn't just accept the role of Harvey Dent, he strategically chose it, negotiating a contract specifically ensuring he would transform into villain Two-Face in subsequent films. His preparation wasn't casual. He studied psychological case studies of dissociative identity disorder and worked with a facial movement coach. Then came the switch. When Joel Schumacher replaced Tim Burton for Batman Forever, Williams was informed that Tommy Lee Jones would play Two-Face instead. It wasn't artistic differences, according to Williams. They simply paid me off. My contract said I would be Two-Face, and they wrote a check to break that promise. The amount to buy out Williams' contract, a reported $1.5 million. Williams maintained diplomatic silence publicly until 2019 when he finally revealed his disappointment. "I had created an entire psychological background for Harvey. I wasn't just playing a district attorney. I was playing a man who would become one of Batman's greatest enemies. They took that opportunity away." Tim Burton secretly shot alternative, darker versions of key scenes. While battling studio demands to make the film more family-friendly, Burton engaged in cinematic guerrilla warfare. He didn't just shoot the script as written, he shot 2 versions of key scenes, the approved version and his preferred darker take, listing the latter as technical coverage in daily production reports. Editor Ray Lovejoy confirmed, "Tim would tell the crew, 'Let's get one for us after we get one for them.' The US version was always more disturbing, more Burton-esque. He'd have Jack push the performance into truly deranged territory." During final cut negotiations, Burton strategically included some compromise footage he never intended to keep, allowing executives to win by removing those elements while keeping his genuinely preferred takes. The Joker's hand buzzer electrocution of Antoine Rotelli was originally much more graphic, showing the victim's skull becoming momentarily visible as electricity surged through him. Burton later admitted, "I learned quickly that sometimes you have to appear to lose battles to win the war." Michael Keaton and Kim Basinger refused to speak to each other off-camera. The on-screen chemistry between Bruce Wayne and Vicky Vale masked a tense reality. Keaton and Basinger weren't speaking to each other except when cameras rolled. The conflict wasn't personal initially, it was artistic. Basinger repeatedly requested script changes to give Vicky Vale more agency, while Keaton felt these changes undermined Bruce Wayne's arc. What began as creative differences evolved into a communication breakdown. First Assistant Director Derek Cracknell became their reluctant intermediary, relaying necessary information between the stars between takes. Cinematographer Roger Pratt devised shooting strategies to minimize their time together, including filming their reactions separately, even during shared scenes. Producer John Peters later acknowledged, "We had a situation where our romantic leads couldn't stand to be in the same room. We built entire schedule blocks around separating them whenever possible." Ironically, this tension translated into the exact dynamic Burton wanted, a relationship with an undercurrent of unease and emotional distance. Sometimes the best on-screen chemistry comes from its complete absence off-camera. The Joker's parade float killed a stuntman during rehearsals. The Joker's parade sequence, with its giant balloons and money-throwing float, resulted in tragedy before cameras ever rolled. During mechanical testing of the float's extending platform, a cable snapped, causing the hydraulic lift to collapse. Stuntman Paul McCarthy Boyington was pinned beneath the mechanism. Though rushed to the hospital, McCarthy Boyington died from his injuries. Production shut down for a week during the subsequent investigation. The entire float mechanism had to be redesigned and recertified before filming could resume. When shooting finally commenced, the sequence was significantly scaled back from Burton's original vision, which had included more elaborate stunts and aerial work. The accident cast a shadow over production, with crew members reporting that Nicholson seemed particularly affected, requesting a private memorial service on set. The tragedy remains largely unknown to the public because Warner Brothers secured non-disclosure agreements from all involved parties, and pre-internet news cycles allowed the story to remain mostly confined to industry circles. Warner Brothers created a fake production company to hide filming locations from fans and press. Batman didn't film under its own name. Warner Brothers created a shell production company called Dictel, complete with fake letterhead, crew shirts, and production vehicles to throw off fans and press. Location scouts never mentioned Batman when securing filming permissions. This deception went to extraordinary lengths. Call sheets listed the project as Dictel Research and Development Project 9 rather than Batman. Actors' trailers were labeled with pseudonyms. Michael Keaton was Walter, while Jack Nicholson was Neptune. The fake company strategy became necessary after early production leaks led to chaos at Pinewood Studios. When fans discovered Batman's filming location, hundreds gathered daily, disrupting shooting schedules and attempting to access sets. Security costs ballooned to over $50,000 weekly. Location manager David Broder revealed, "We had actors smuggled in and out under blankets in the backs of vans. Jack's contract actually specified that his security costs were separate from his salary. It was like running a military operation, not making a movie." Batman's marketing campaign changed Hollywood forever. Batman wasn't just marketed, it was weaponized, becoming the first film to be treated as a brand rather than just a movie. Warner Brothers allocated an unprecedented $8 million marketing budget, equivalent to about 15% of the film's production cost. The strategy wasn't conventional. Rather than promoting stars or story, they sold a symbol, the Batman logo. 6 months before release, that symbol appeared everywhere. Billboards with no text, just the logo.
And we'd all be dead.
Merchandise hit stores a full year before the film opened. The teaser trailer contained no actor names, no plot hints, just mood and that iconic symbol. This approach transformed industry practice overnight. As Warner executive Terry Semel noted, "We weren't selling a film, we were selling an event." The result? Before a single review was published, Batman had sold over $750 million in merchandise. The film essentially became profitable before it even opened. Every subsequent blockbuster, from Jurassic Park to Marvel films, follows the template Batman pioneered in 1989. The Batman effect caused real psychological problems in children nationwide. Batman's success triggered an unexpected psychological phenomenon. Child psychologists reported a surge in what they termed the Batman effect, children injuring themselves attempting to fly or fight crime. Emergency rooms across America reported over 300 Batman-related injuries in the months following the film's release. Warner Brothers, facing potential litigation, quietly funded a PSA campaign featuring Michael Keaton out of costume, explaining that Batman was fiction and his abilities weren't real. These PSAs aired selectively in markets with high reported injury rates. Dr. Sheila Broman, pediatric psychologist who first documented the phenomenon, explained, "Children had difficulty separating the fantasy elements from the crime fighter narrative. The film presented extraordinary abilities in what felt like a real-world context, creating a perfect storm for magical thinking in developmental psychology." The studio subsequently incorporated safety messaging into Batman Returns marketing materials and established new protocols for superhero films targeting younger audiences, protocols that remain in place for superhero films today. Batman's no-killing rule? Completely absent from the original script. Sam Hamm's screenplay had Batman directly killing 24 identifiable characters, including graphically throwing a henchman down a cathedral bell tower while quipping, "Time to ring your bell." Studio executives didn't object on moral grounds. They objected because it limited merchandising potential. As one Warner memo stated, "A Batman who kills criminals appeals to adults, but alienates the toy market. Consider revisions that maintain threat while reducing actual deaths." The compromise was Burton could keep some ambiguous deaths, but had to eliminate confirmed kills and remove Batman's proposed one-liners after each death. Several completed scenes were either reshot or edited to obscure character fates. This tension between creator vision and commercial potential defined superhero filmmaking for decades. Every subsequent Batman director has faced the same fundamental question: how dark is too dark for a character who needs to sell both movie tickets and Happy Meals? Batman wasn't just a film that made money, it was a revolution disguised as entertainment. It didn't just resurrect a character, it created an entirely new framework for how blockbusters are made, marketed, and merchandised. The film industry we know today is born in the shadow of the Bat. What began with 50,000 protest letters ended with $1.2 billion in combined box office and merchandise revenue. What started with a controversial casting choice became one of cinema's most iconic performances. Through production nightmares, studio battles, and genuine tragedy, Batman emerged as something unprecedented, a film that was simultaneously commercial entertainment and artistic statement. If you found these revelations shocking, hit that subscribe button for more hidden Hollywood histories. And remember, in the words of Jack Nicholson's Joker, "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?" After learning what really happened behind the scenes of Batman, now you have.